I'm intermittent fasting, and I'm wondering if coffee with a little cream will break my fast. And then follow-up question is, what is allowed while fasting? So intermittent fasting, we intermittent fast, right?
So let's define intermittent fasting for those people who may not know what that is.
Oh man, who doesn't know what intermittent fasting is by now?
Yeah, but so you can also call it time-restricted eating.
So you compress your eating from, typical standard American diet could be anywhere from 7 a.m. to 8 or 9 p.m., right? So 14 hours of eating and 10 hours of not eating. So time-restricted eating, we're just trying to compress that down into as small a window as we feel comfortable with.
So the question is, what are you allowed to ingest as far as liquids go while fasting? So this specific member is concerned with what they're having in the morning, specifically with coffee. So is coffee allowed? Does coffee break a fast?
In my opinion, not really. So there's a lot of schools of thought on what breaks a fast. Some of it has to do with biology. Some of it has to do with just a general belief. So a lot of people believe that 50 calories or less will not break your fast.
So with coffee, you have to be careful with anything you're putting in your coffee.
Right. I would say that is probably not what I believe, right? So 50 calories of sugar is going to have a much different impact than 50 calories of heavy whipping cream or MCT oil or something like that. Some people would say anything that triggers mTOR, right? mTOR is the process in your body that is sensing if there's energy available, right? Sensing that, hey, this guy ate something, so I got to do something, right? So mTOR is the mammalian target of rapamycin. It's just a signaling pathway. And some people say anything that triggers mTOR will break your fast.
So what triggers mTOR?
The availability of food. So that could be a very strict version of fasting, right? To say that anything that triggers mTOR.
Right, so there's dry fasting where people don't even drink any water. There's water fasting where they just drink water. Mm-hmm. And then there's a whole bucket of, there's fasting, which can be a lot of different things. And then there's fat fasting. With fat fasting, people would allow like MCT oil or a little bit of heavy cream or butter. They would allow fats in.
Yeah.
So I think the question comes down to, what is your goal with fasting? And are you just getting started? Because if you're just getting started with fasting, I wouldn't worry about if you're adding, maybe you're struggling with some hunger, or maybe it's just habit signaling, right? Like your body's like, oh, it's time to have breakfast, feed me. So as you're moving into intermittent fasting, if it's feeling uncomfortable to you, or if you just absolutely hate your coffee by itself,
right,
then I would go ahead and let yourself have that heavy cream or a little bit of MCT oil blended into the coffee. And then if you hit a plateau, that's the time to move to the next level.
Yeah, I would just say if you're new to intermittent fasting, don't worry about what the definition is. The only thing you really need to concern yourself with is closing that window where you're consuming a lot of calories. The longer you do it, the better you'll get at it. Your definition will change. I don't let, my opinion of things changes over time, and
as we learn.
Right. And I'm not going to let somebody who has a very strong opinion about, oh, that breaks your fast, influence how I do my intermittent fasting.
Because you know what works for you.
Yeah, I know what works for me.
So things like black coffee, black or green tea, like minerals and electrolytes that you might take, like salt, and then some pre-workouts. Like one of the questions was pre-workouts.
Yeah.
Those are kind of questionable because of the artificial sugars, and do they stimulate mTOR?
Well, and a lot of pre-workouts have branched chain amino acids in them, which you could argue, say, triggers mTOR, right? So, yeah.
So you need to be, again, start where you are with what you have, and then move into more advanced methods if what you're doing is no longer working for you.